Right, I'm going to make my tiles, and I didn't tell you that this watercolour paper, these old watercolour experiments, have this lovely textured surface which is just perfect for what I want, for resembling these old tiles or stone slices. So I decided that I'd go for 2 centimetres by 1 centimetre and started drawing them out. And then alarm bells rang, because simple rectangles aren't going to do it. They need to be angled tiles that get progressively narrower. And what's the angle got to be? Well, something to do with the mathematics of the surface of a cone. And as I demonstrated with my terrible maths doing something much more simply, that's beyond me. And there was a moment of panic. I can't do it. I'm going to have to ask someone. I do know people who could probably explain the maths of that. But then I thought, no, I can actually do it by construction. I can make in more of these old watercolour plays the semicircle, and I can cut out the tiles from that, but it's got to be more than one, so I'm going to have to cut out a whole circle, or maybe even 3 semicircles to cope with the layers of overlapping tileage. And that's the next task. So that should work. It'll take some time to draw that out. This will be the first layer of tiles, but I am going to have to draw it out a second time, because the second layer of tiles will have to be from 1 centimetre in to 3 centimetres in. So I'm going to have 2 of these semicircles on the go. Right, time to do lots of snipping and sticking. That's the second layer done. I'm not sticking down very well. It's taken a good while. It's time for a cup of coffee before I do any more. Third layer. 4 layers, and it's gone midnight. Do I soldier on and do more? Oh, do one more layer perhaps. 6th layer that's gone on, and I had to double up the width of the tiles for that one, so I'm still working on these 2 semicircles, cutting them smaller. So that's row 6 and 4 and 2, and that's the odd numbered rows. But on that last one I had to actually cut every other line, because they were just getting too tiny and slim to handle. But it's looking all right. It's the still the contact adhesive, so I have to leave it sort of 8 to 10 minutes and then squidge down against the cone to make that a little bit tighter. That's the way it works. Almost there. Keeping my eyes open with matchsticks. 7, I think. That's 9. It's 9, and it's going to have a lead cap or a single stone cap on the top. But I'm going to need one more. I'm going to need one more layer yet. Those are very small now. I'm going to have to cut one more out of there, and then I'm going to bed. Good night. That's just going to have to be built up with several layers of dry brushing. They're very easy to lose patience and rush it and put the paint on too thickly, but I don't want to lose the texture. It's got several more layers of paint and then colouring to go. And while in between coats, I'm trying to disguise this seam with filler, and it's tricky because even though this is wall filler for full-size walls, and it's one of the features you want of that is something that doesn't shrink. Now this very tiny scale, it does shrink. It's just like this little tiny slivers of the stuff that I'm forcing into those cracks, and they shrink, so it's going to need another coat. It's just like crumbly sand, really. Doesn't really stay in very well. It's going to need the paint to actually make it consolidate, and it's going to need some black before it has the pink. Just time, fiddliness, patience at this stage, and very light dry brushing on the top. That's 3 layers of dry brushing on the roof, and 2 applications of filler just into certain places on that seam, and that's not quite working very well because it does tend to sort of suck in to the, can I indicate that? Filler seems to suck into the join all the time. That's just going to have to be painted with layer of, when it's dry, with a layer of the black and then layers of the pink, until these ones that I've designed to join up to look like single bricks look like single bricks. It's just patient camouflaging, really. That's all the white filler over painted with black, and it's just a case of breaking up that line. It's interesting what you don't see. I just hesitated there as I was speaking, because suddenly I can see there's still white here. I can't see that with a naked eye, but I can suddenly see that once I look at it through the viewfinder, because it automatically is correcting the exposure, so it's actually brightening the image. The image I can see in my screen as I'm talking to you now is brighter than the image I can actually see with my naked eyes. Perhaps I need to put the light on. It's the middle of the day, but it's shown me some bits I need to just finish off. It's no good just painting pink over white. That's going to alter the colouring of the final, however many layers you put on. I had to do the black first to approximate the original colour of the foam. My camouflaging, I started just to muck about painting some of the bricks a slightly different colour. There's going to be layers of stuff on that yet. And then I decided that I didn't like my fixing system, so I bought these little neodymium, if that's how you pronounce it, neodymium perhaps, little magnets, which are going to be fixed in here. See the little sockets, and that's going to have to be just have matching sockets on there. And remembering, every time I work with this stuff, which is the foam core, I can't use the contact adhesive without sealing the surfaces first with the Mod Podge, so that's drying. But all this is sort of dithering, because what I really need to start doing now is putting on the layers of colour that's going to start to merge it all together and make it stop looking quite so pink. And what I'm really dithering about is the fact that I'm not happy with the extremity of the contrast between the black that represents the gaps between the stones and the stones themselves. So I'm going to have to put on some sort of wash, and I decided that I would use this shading flesh, and that's probably called something different now, but that's actually this company, Americana, that used to be called light flesh. There's a shade in between called medium flesh, and then there's shading flesh. So that's what I'm going to use. But I found that when I made up a wash, and that's quite a weak wash, that's about 4 parts water to 1 part shading flesh, it didn't adhere properly to the black parts, which is still the bare foam. It's just not got enough cling, so I'm going to have to use a glaze rather than a wash. I haven't got any acrylic glazing medium, it's quite expensive, so I'm going to try the Mod Podge. So what I'm now going to do is mix up this, which is 4 teaspoons of Mod Podge and 1 teaspoon of shading flesh, and then I'm going to have to take a very, very deep breath, afraid of whether or not it might ruin it completely, and get a big brush and start slapping it on. Wish me luck. The paint going on, and it does. I did actually end up doing a little test because it's the Mod Podge is white, dry as clear, which of course looked like I'm going to lose all the detail between the brick, but that's actually a little dry test patch. I did that first, and quite pleased with what's happening. So I painted the whole of that in the dark pink, and it looked really rather horrible for a while, and it's a bit scary. But now I'm doing a wash over that, very thin. That's the very runny, sort of about 3 parts water mixture of the brown and the red that I showed you earlier, and that's running into the cracks, and I'm pleased with it. It's going to get trodden on in a moment. The tower is complete. It's a lot of work, but I'm pleased with it. It doesn't seem to be adding too much to the overall weight, although I am worried about whether or not the support is gradually bending. Measuring that whether either by angle or distance from here to here is something I haven't done yet. One of the many things that I keep meaning to do but don't do. The top of the tower, though it's a bit delicate, comes off, and it's connected by a socket and a couple of little magnets buried in there. And now I should be able to get back to working on the cobbling, this stone pavers that go around the base of the tower. It's been very much a case of can only do one bit at a time and then wait to the next day for the glue to dry, and I need to get the project to a state where I can be working on one bit while another bit is drying. Hopefully get to that stage soon. Well, that's been a long evening's work, but it's been quite fun. I had to make an awful lot more little stones, but I'm pleased with it. It's designed to sort of look as though they're slipping away, and one or two more are going to teeter over the edge at any time. I don't know quite what to do with this area. I might make this rock or grass, one far side of the building. I just made myself a note there to put in a garderobe chute, because I think that might be quite good. Rather than a down pipe, a stanchion pipe as we have in modern buildings, there'd be just a vertical shaft. They were often wooden and tacked onto the side of buildings, and maybe there'd be a pile of poop there where it goes down, because that happens to tie up with the overflowing septic tank down below. Leave that 24 hours to dry now. Over a day later, it's gone midnight, so I started finding some time to work on it. That's actually taken half an hour, so it's getting on towards 1 o'clock in the morning now, and I've just put a layer of Mod Podge on and worked it in with a soft brush, so it's gone into most of those grooves. I think it will need a bit more where some of the deepest grooves are. That's meant to look like the sort of mostly would have been just mud and earth that would have worked into those lines. I like the effect though. Perhaps it would have been cheaper to use PVA or paint it first and then put the Mod Podge on, but I'm quite pleased with that. On a mixture of Mod Podge and black paint today all over the rock surfaces, and I haven't managed to do it absolutely. There are white specks that I'm going to have to do later with smaller brushes or spray paint. The Mod Podge and black paint is to provide an undercoat and harden the surface up, so you can actually hear that now. It doesn't sound like soft foam. And I've I'm finally ready to go back to working on the timber framed sections, which I hardly given a thought to for months. But I sort of remember where I was, which was having to think about giving these walls a bowed look. Sort of started, I think, on them, but not enough. The only way I can think of doing it is to take sanding pads, which are actually expensive. You used to be able to buy them on market stalls, but you don't see them now in the DIY stores. They are quite expensive, but they're the best thing for it. I'm not going to try and do it with a stinky, smelly heat guns. They're just not smooth enough. And I'm just going to have to take those pieces and sit with a dust mask on and sand until I get the right kind of bowed curvature. So the green paint is just slapped on to show me the places I want to make sure I sand away. It's going to be tedious. I'm also going to make sure I do it indoors. You might think it'd be easier to do it outdoors, but I don't like the idea of putting all that black microplastic onto the ground to be washed away into the drains, go out to the sea. So it's going to be done indoors, despite the mess that will make over everything, where I can at least vacuum it up and try to dispose of it a little bit more responsibly.